Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the Only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the Only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. All right. Thanks so much for pulling up. We have infamous Sylvia in the house, y'all. Let's get her on deck. Welcome, infamous Sylvia. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Doing great, and I'm so thankful that you are able to come up and, just provide some good narrative and give us some overview and some additional insight into this case. And so, thanks so much again. I really appreciate you. Shout out to Baby Shay, Antoinette, Carolyn Marie. You guys, we're going to get right into it. We're not going to play no games today. It's Sunday, and I know people have things to do. But today we are talking about, so here's the thing, two things. Whether you think R. Kelly is guilty or not, it's becoming more and more evident that he did not receive a fair trial. And this is really a social justice issue. And so not only should he be acquitted based on all of this, raggedy evidence, but I personally feel like the AUSA, Geddes, prior and previous cases that she's prosecuted really need to be looked into. Because if you allow this shoddy evidence, allegedly, to move forward in this case and secure a conviction, then what about all of the other cases that she's been in charge of and overseeing? And, nobody knows anything about him because the defendant wasn't someone who's popular and a world-renowned R&B singer, somebody like R. Kelly. What do you think about that, infamous Sylvia?
I agree with you, Mel. I definitely agree with you. And one of the things when I was checking her, some of the stuff that she has, cases that she has brought about, there are some complaints that have been submitted. But I don't know how far it's gotten, but I'm going to start checking that stuff out.
Yeah. Good. Infamous Sylvia on the cases. That's why we're here today. But yeah, that needs to be looked into because it is a social justice issue. And just imagine if it were you in R. Kelly's shoes, and you know how shoddy this evidence and the duplicity of the witnesses and the testimony, you would want to be on lockdown as long as he has been, and his career is ruined and finances are ruined. And then based on all the shoddy evidence. So, I'm not going to belabor the point because infamous Sylvia is on the case, which means that we're going to be able to get into it. So that works for me. So let's get into it. So today we're talking about, we're still kind of talking about Jane Doe. All right. And with Jane Doe, let me fix the screen here. Perspective me. What's tea, girl? Thanks for pulling up. Yeah, thanks all of you guys for pulling up. Don't forget to hit the like button, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Replay gang, you know the deal. Leave a comment. I want to hear from you. So, Bonjean has also included in her motion, she's addressing the Racketeering Act, Act 8 that they filed on her. And Act 8 is specific to Jane Doe. And what Bonjean is saying is that the government failed to prove that the defendant committed Mann Act violations in connection with the sexual activity with Jane on or about April 28th through May 1st of 2015 in the state of California. Now, Jane was 17 years old in May of 2015, and she concedes that she misrepresented her age to the defendant when she met him and kept her true age a secret until the fall of 2015, after meeting the defendant in Orlando, Florida, in April. And she traveled to meet him in California at the end of April. And here's what I just don't understand. Knowing that she lied about her age coming out the gate, why didn't the AUSA just throw this out then, at least for her case? Any idea on that, Sylvia?
There's an agenda. Political
How?
prisoner.
Yeah.
There's people running for different position. I mean, there's a lot of
Mm,
things that could. I'm
yeah,
speculating,
sure.
Um, so it's a lot of stuff that could have been a reason. But my thing is, it's like he was the big dog for them to
Hmm.
get. The big,
Yeah,
kahuna.
the
That
win.
big thing that would make them hit the map and being like recognized. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of people was just trying to live off of him.
Yeah. And I was thinking about it earlier today that, on television, the government, the AUSAs and prosecutors, they have more integrity than it looks like in this case. You know what I mean? And it's just unbelievable. So, anyway, Jane traveled to meet R. Kelly in California at the end of April 2015. The government they charged the defendant with 2 Mann Act violations in connection with this trip, alleging um, essentially what they're trying to say is he had her come out to Cali just so he could give her an STD. So preliminarily, the government's use of the Mann Act under the present set of facts is unprecedented and unjustified. The law behind that provides that whoever knowingly transports any individual in interstate or foreign commerce or in any territory or possession of the United States with the intent that such individual engage in prostitution or any sexual activity for which any person can be charged with a criminal offense or attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Now, the government contended that the defendant arranged for Jane to travel to Cali with the intent of willfully exposing her to a contagious, infectious, or communicable disease, and that's in violation of the California Health and Safety Code. The government also failed to prove, and this is Bonjing's motion, the government also failed to prove a Mann Act violation where it offered insufficient evidence that the defendant transported Jane with the intent of exposing her to herpes and committed a violation of the California Health and Safety Code by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So Bonjing is saying, y'all didn't prove that. And they basically didn't prove it because as we get further into this, we're going to see that Jane went out there under her own volition.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has a conversation with her mother in the text about it.
And girl, we're going to get to, you see what the title of the show is. Text message from Jane Doe's mama. He going to seduce you tonight. Mm-hmm. So because there's no link connecting defendant's transportation of Jane with an intent to expose her to herpes, the defendant cannot be guilty of a Mann Act violation. The 9th and 10th Circuit Courts of Appeal have held that to establish the intent requirement of the Mann Act violation, the government has to prove that illegal sexual activity is the dominant or significant or motivating purpose behind the transportation. And in this motion, Bonjean goes further to say she outlines the Third Circuit Court's approved jury instruction, and it says it is not necessary for the government to prove that illegal sexual activity was the sole purpose for the transportation. A person may have several different purposes or motives for such travel, and each may prompt in varying degrees the act of making the journey. The government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, however, that a significant or motivating purpose of the travel across state or foreign boundaries was to have the individual transported to engage in illegal sexual activity. So in other words, the illegal sexual activity must have not been merely incidental to the trip. That had to have been the game plan. I'm gonna have you come out to Cali so we can do all this illegalness because I know that you're underage and I know I want to give you an STD. That's not why. That's not what what R. Kelly had her come out to Cali for. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Be sure to
Well,
like.
at that time, remember, he thought he was remember he thought she was 18 at the time, so it
Absolutely.
wasn't underage sex. So
Right. Right. And but again, that AUSA, Getty's, and she knew this. She knew this because she had already spoken with Jane Doe. So she already knew what the real deal was. So Bongine goes further to say that she cites a court case and she says that in determining whether a dominant purpose exists, one has to ask instead whether the illicit behavior is one of the efficient and compelling purposes of travel. And essentially, it was not. The illicit behavior must be one of the purposes motivating the interstate transportation. She also further cites that the Second Circuit Court does not seem to have answered the intent question, but whether this court applies a true dominant purpose or just a standard of it being merely significant or a motivating purpose, the result is the same. The defendant's alleged violation of a California health law prohibiting him from exposing a partner to herpes was incidental to the trip. It wasn't part of the itinerary. There is no proof in this record that demonstrates the defendant's motivating purpose in transporting Jane to California was to expose her to herpes. In fact, the government cannot even show the motivating purpose of the trip had anything to do with Jane. As Jane herself testified when asked, question, and while you were 17, did you take additional trips to Cali with the defendant? Yes, I did. And do you remember where you traveled to? I do not. Do you remember what the purpose of your travel was for? He had shows. So they might have had something if she would have said, well, because he said he wanted me to pull up and give me the H. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to give me them herpes. But her answer was he had shows, and that's why she went to California. And in short, no rational juror could find that the government proved that defendant's intent to transport Jane to California was to infect her with herpes. Now, second, shout out to everybody in the chat. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, leave a comment, replay gang. You know I want to hear from you. Shout out to Lizzie Mack, Pretty Brown Eyes, Perspective Me, T. Jones, and of course, Baby Shay. One of the other issues is the fact that the government, first of all, they didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he didn't intend to, transport her there for herpes. But this violation of the California Health and Safety Code, come to find out, y'all, that code had been repealed. It had not been in effect. It was no longer a law. The government had no authority to charge defendant with a statute that was repealed or inoperative at the time of prosecution. And they're finding that in a case a statute is repealed or rendered inoperative, no further proceedings can be held to enforce it in pending prosecutions unless competent authority has kept the statute alive for that purpose. And what Bongine is saying is that she goes in here further and she goes, you know what? They actually went through and did some manipulation and kind of rewrote it. Let me see if I can find that part right here. Sylvie, what was there any talk about that? Any major in the courtroom? Was there any like, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that, to your knowledge?
No talk at all.
What'd you say?
No. Nope.
Okay. So the statute was overhauled entirely in 2018 after the California legislature determined that it was antiquated, having been passed during an era of discrimination towards those affected with HIV. The current status bears little to no resemblance to the repealed 2015 version, least of all because it now requires a showing of a specific intent to transmit the disease. So although repealed or inoperative, the government proposed a jury instruction that attempted to reflect the elements of the 2015 statute, which is no longer valid, and apparently recognizing that the 2015 statute was unconstitutionally vague in any event, the government stepped into the shoes of the legislature rewrote the statute to save it from a constitutional challenge. Thus, the government not only charged defendant with a repealed statute, but rewrote it in clear violation of various constitutional provisions, including the separations of power clause and principles of comity. So the defendant's jury was instructed about a statute that never existed. A California court has no authority to rewrite a California statute, and neither does a district court sitting in New York. Y'all, Bonji ain't playing. She's not playing. And this is why I'm saying this is a social justice issue. They went that far to just go ahead and rewrite a law. And I guess if y'all don't catch it, then if y'all don't know we did it, then y'all don't know we did it. But this man gets to be locked up. Free cows, y'all. Free him. So even if the government had the authority to charge defendant under the 2015 version of the California Health and Safety Code, the statute does not pass constitutional muster. Most obviously, the statute is void for vagueness, both on its face, and as applied to the defendant. The doctrine of vagueness guards against arbitrary or discriminatory law enforcement by insisting that a statute provides standards to govern the actions of police officers, prosecutors, juries, and judges. And as written, the 2015 law fails to provide adequate definitions that put individuals with any chronic and any potential contagious diseases on notice of what amounts to criminal conduct, including communicable diseases that are not sexually transmitted. Sound off, Sylvia. What are your thoughts about this thus far?
Some good stuff. I think Bojine got something there.
Yeah, and so, I mean, he should have. It's crazy. I'm just really so interested. I can't wait until a decision is made on this. It would seem right now that they would have to acquit Kells, just not at least on this one, and a whole bunch of other things. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Thanks for pulling up. Our guest today is, again, the infamous Sylvia. Infamous Sylvia on the case. So y'all take a look at the ticker. You know what it says. If you feel it in your heart, go ahead and make it rain on Infamous Sylvia's Cash App. It costs a cute coin to get these transcripts and documents from the court, and but we're coming with the truth. It's not no innuendo and suspicion and hyperbole. We're coming with the facts. But let's keep moving. Bongine also she makes it clear in this motion that, by way of example, nearly 50% of the population has herpes simplex 1, which is a communicable disease. Under the 2015 statute, anyone with herpes simplex 1, also known as cold sores, anyone with that who kisses another person without disclosing that they have herpes simplex 1 is guilty of a misdemeanor, even if the afflicted person has no active infection outbreak and does not pass the disease along to the recipient of the kiss. Under the statute, parents with herpes simplex 1 would be prohibited from kissing their own children. So one cannot imagine how many arbitrary prosecutions could take place in the current era of a pandemic if this law were in effect today. Free Gales. And even if the elements of the statute were, as the government alleged, insufficient evidence existed to sustain the charge. And by that, she means the insufficient evidence is Jane Doe already said the reason for her going to Cali is because he had shows. You feel what I'm saying? It wasn't for him to give her that HS1. So presumably the government assumes that the consequences of transmitting the disease to the person exposed, but effective treatments exist for herpes that significantly reduce outbreaks and the likelihood of transmission. If defendant was consistently taking Valtrex in April 2015, it cannot be said that he willfully expose Jane with knowledge of consequences, particularly since Jane was not infected with herpes in 2015. This racketeering act cannot be sustained where it was based on a repealed law, was rewritten, and was facially unconstitutional in any event. Y'all, what do y'all think? This doesn't make any sense. They need to be looking into the prior cases that this woman has prosecuted, period, point blank. Sylvie, any thoughts on that?
Well, she's crossing all her T's and dotting all her I's in regards to that, because her testing that was done, and I mean, it's, if somebody's taking precaution medicine, right, and that is telling you right there that they're not trying to infect anybody.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That, I mean, that throws out the whole thing, saying he willfully did it, knowingly that he had this disease, then he was not taking care of himself. Because if he's taking the medication, that means he's trying to take care of himself, right, and not give it to him, not let it spread. It's supposed to 99% work effectively for them not to get it.
Yeah.
Because according to the doctor, when he was on the stand, he said he knew. Did you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, Sylvie's out. She's out in the on the case. So if her microphone goes in and out, that is the reason why. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, replay thing, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. So, you know, and again, this is why I say that, you know, this is some shoddy evidence, and for the prosecutor to continue to move forward. The prosecutor knew when she took this girl's statement and got all the evidence. She knew that Kels was taking Valtrex. She knew that the girl's testimony was, well, the reason why I went to Cali is because he had a show. So for her to continue and press forward with the case, even to the point where they went in there and manipulated the law, you know, manipulated to say, well, if we put it like this and say it like that, then we can say that he violated this act. Now, Perspective Me, you're saying that actually, are you saying that Valtrex is actually 67% effective according to the World Health Organization? Let me know about that. Let's see, just going through the comments a little bit. Shout out to all y'all. Appreciate y'all showing up. Appreciate your support. Let's see. Perspective Me says an estimated 3.7 billion people had herpes simplex 1 infection during the same year. Around 66.6% of the world's population aged 0 to 49. Herpes simplex virus 1 is mainly transmitted by oral to oral contact to cause infection. Thanks for the health update, Perspective Me. Appreciate all the details in or around the mouth. Shout out to y'all. Appreciate y'all so much. Be sure to hit that like button. So let's get back into...
Mel, I want to say something. You there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to say Jane Doe number 5, that hers was vaginal, so it wasn't. The 6 was simplex 1. The other one was genital. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fine. And thanks for making that distinction, because, you know, if people are just throwing out all the salacious aspects of this case, and I feel sorry for Kels, because, you know, all his business is out in these streets, man. It's just, it's all out in the streets. Man, he's got, his privacy is over with. So it says here that the government alternatively argues that defendant is guilty of the Mann Act stemming from his April trip to Cali because defendant knowingly persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced Jane to travel to California. Insufficient evidence exists to prove that the defendant took any action to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into traveling to Cali between April and May 2015. Quite the opposite, according to Bonjean. The record shows that Jane's mother purposefully and strategically enticed the defendant with her 17-year-old daughter, comparing her to Aaliyah at various points. The government takes great umbrage to this characterization, but the record speaks for itself. Now, inside of this, they have offered some Bongine has offered some, like attachments to solidify her point. But of course, in this transcript, it's only noted by, Exhibit 222 or Item 899. So, although defense counsel did not make much use of it, now, and that's a mark on them. It says here, although Kell's attorneys didn't make much use of this, Government's Exhibit 233 offers powerful evidence showing that the defendant had no reason to induce, persuade, entice, or coerce Jane into going to California with him. Text messages introduced by the government show that Jane, with the guidance of her mama, and it says mother, but I'm adding mama, with the guidance of her mama, enticed defendant who reasonably believed Jane was 18 years old to bring her to California. Now, in short, when Jane traveled to meet the defendant in Cali in between April and May 2015, she required no enticement, persuasion, or encouragement of any time. On April 11, 2015, Jane attended one of the defendant's concerts in Orlando, Florida. After the show, someone provided Jane with the defendant's phone number. Jane attempted to text the number on the phone and gave the paper to her mother. Now, I wonder who gave her that phone number. Although Jane did not reach the defendant, Jane's mother began texting the defendant, posing as Jane. And I know Sylvie did touch on that when she was here the very first time that she pulled up. So Jane's mother began texting the defendant, posing as her 17-year-old daughter. Jane eventually communicated directly with Kels via FaceTime and told the defendant she was 18 years of age. On April 20th, 2015, Jane's mother, still posing as Jane, initiated text messages with the defendant and arranged for Jane to meet the defendant at a hotel in Orlando. Now, one of these exhibits shows that Jane and her mother knew from the start that the defendant was interested in Jane sexually, believing that she was of legally consenting age. Before Jane's first meeting with the defendant, Jane's mother texted Jane stating, "This man is trying to screw, but I'm trying to make it business. He knows you're a singer, but he ain't playing. He wanna tonight." Now, despite that, Jane and her mother were on notice that defendant was interested in Jane sexually. Jane's mother encouraged Jane to meet defendant. She told Jane to keep up the defendant's, or to keep the defendant's curiosity piqued, and advised her about what she should wear to effectively entice him. During her in-court testimony, Jane testified that she went to meet the defendant solely to audition for him, but her contemporaneous text messages reveal that Jane was more interested in the defendant for personal and romantic reasons. Jane texted his mother and said, he's so fine. He's fine. And when Jane's mother told her to be ready to sing something, Jane was like, suggesting that she actually didn't want to audition for the defendant. Now, Jane's mother encouraged Jane to tease the defendant, but not to do anything sexual with him, since he would then lose interest in her. Now, and now for the mamas out in the chat, you would think you would tell your daughter, now don't do anything sexual with him because, you want to go ahead and, keep yourself, save that for your husband, or don't be out here, don't develop a reputation for being for the streets. But instead, the mom said, don't knock his boots, because if you do, he's going to lose interest in you. That's the lowest standard that the woman had. Wait, Sylvia, were you getting ready to sound off, girl? Thought I saw your mic go on mute.
No. I'm good.
Okay. So Jane's mother encouraged Jane to tease defendant, don't do anything sexual with him, since he would then lose interest in her. Believing that he was speaking to an 18-year-old Jane, the defendant texted Jane's mother that he was staying on the tour bus, but was going to get a hotel room for their privacy. So Kels thinks he's texting Jane, and in fact, the mama is on the other end. And so now the mom knows all the 411. And to me, a concerned parent would have been like, if there was some rightness to it, a concerned parent would have been like, Jane, get out of there, hurry up. All he wants to do is knock the boots. So come on up out of that. And because he thought he was talking to you, and I found out. And girl, that mom, that
But the
mom
thing
knew
is,
what.
I
Yes,
would never let her go in the first place,
that's
especially
what
if
I'm
I found
saying.
out what the intention was.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, so the mother, and I highlight it because the mother has had multiple opportunities. If you were concerned about if you were genuinely concerned about the welfare of your child, you've had multiple opportunities to pull her up out of that situation. You had multiple opportunities to do that. Shout out to Pink Unicorn in the chat. So, and
She was
everybody else,
encouraging it. She the
thank
one
you.
wanted it. She just didn't want her to lose interest in her and
Right,
mess up her deal. It wasn't
right,
because she was so concerned about her daughter
right,
doing this and that. No, she just didn't want him to lose interest.
right.
That's why she didn't want him to have sex with her.
Mm-hmm. Just doing too much. So Jane's mother then shared that message about we're going to get a hotel room for our privacy. Jane's mother then shared that message with Jane texting, "Yep. He said he's staying on the tour bus, but he wants to get a hotel room for just y'all, so y'all can get away from security and managers and so on." Jane's mother gave Jane some final advice before she sent her daughter to meet the defendant, who believed that Jane was 18 years old. And this has been covered before, but this is what the mom said: "Be prepared to sing 3 songs. He said he will meet you and listen to your song. Please have your glasses off, hair to the side. Mama knows best. Pretty hurts. And third, your choice. Don't yell. Put on a show. Dance, grab his hand, shimmy, wiggle, sit on his lap, entice him. While singing is all about performance. This is your chance and opportunity. Don't blow it." Jane's mother even told Jane not to look grown. "Take off that ugly lipstick. I told you he don't like for you to look grown. I told you keep your hair curly. That look like a hot mess. You need some jeans or some shorts. Are you trying to look grown? He wanted you because you look young and innocent, and that's what he want. Not a little girl trying to be grown. You're a damn fool." I mean, this mom is, oh man, she's out of pocket. So, defying her mother's advice to merely tease defendant, Jane engaged in sexual conduct with defendant in the hotel room. Jane stripped down to her undergarments, walked back and forth for the defendant. She later acquiesced to removing her clothes, testifying she got on top of them backwards. And we'll leave the rest of y'all imagination what happened after that. After the sexual encounter, now, and the transcripts don't say that. I'm saying that, y'all. It's Sunday. I ain't trying to, put all that language out there. After the sexual encounter, however, officers arrived at the hotel room and knocked on the door. After arranging for Jane to meet defendant in his hotel, Jane's parents apparently called the police. Now, y'all, I can't believe it. Can y'all believe? Look, y'all say something in the comments. Y'all say something in the comments. Kimberly Black said, "Backwards sounds experienced to me." Say it, Kim. Say it, Kim. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Let's see. Alma says, "Sign, spit and fine petition to charge Alice Clary for trafficking, extortion, child abuse." Oh my goodness. I didn't know there was a petition out there. I don't know if there's some way we can get that to the mods so that they can go ahead and post the link in the chat, because I'm down for it. Free Arkels. This is a social justice issue. It really is. All his business is out in the street. They done broke the man. But I just, wait, hold on a minute. After arranging for Jane to meet defendant in his hotel, Jane's parents apparently called the police. Jane described defendant as nervous and anxious, asking her to confirm that she was 18 years old as she had represented. Jane testified at trial after the defendant, looked through the people. He made me go into the room. He made me go into the restroom immediately and told me to get dressed. And he said, "Are you 18?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Don't lie to me." And I said, "Yes." Defendant opened the door and the police checked Jane's identification to confirm her age before leaving. The defendant was present when police officers checked Jane's identification. Rather than calling it a night, Jane again removed her clothes, got on top of Kale's to continue in the so can y'all now that is enough for the AUSA to have said, "You know what, girlfriend, you lied, and then you lied, and then you lied, and you lied some more." I mean, After her first encounter with the defendant, Jane told her mother that defendant had asked whether he could fly her to meet him. Jane told her mother, "I said, duh." Jane continued to communicate with the defendant via text message and by phone and continued to spend time with the defendant in Orlando doing normal dating activities, such as seeing movies and eating out. At one point, Jane's mother got frustrated with Jane for not prioritizing her music with the defendant. On April 23rd, 2015, Jane's mother texted her, "You need to let him hear your songs. Let him see your video. You trying to date the man. You need to let him see your..." Jane's mother also continued to encourage Jane's relationship with defendant, telling her to be a little feisty, stating that he married Aaliyah because she was feisty and she didn't let him run over her. "You need to be different than the rest." Later that evening, Jane's mother texted Jane, "You are silly. That man ain't trying to do nothing with you musically. All he want to, period, because he like young girls." Jane reassured her mother that the defendant was willing to look at her performances and was patiently waiting to look at some of her videos that her mother had emailed to her. On April 24, 2015, after the defendant had left Orlando, Jane's mother instructed Jane, "You better be texting him so you will stay on his mind." Later that day, Jane texted her mother about flying out to see the defendant in California. Here's Jane. This is what she texted. "And I talked to R. Kelly." Here's Mom. "Yeah, about what?" "LMAO, about flying me out." And the mom, "Oh, really? When?" Jane says, "Yeah, whenever I tell him he can. Tomorrow if I choose." And the mom says, "Oh, yeah?" So on April 28, 2015, Jane traveled to Los Angeles, California to meet defendant with the knowledge and consent of her parents. Jane continued to text with her mother once in LA. At one point, her mother told her, "He going to be in your room butt naked with one of his songs playing, LOL." And one of these exhibits that is presented reflects that Jane and her mother texted incessantly, like nonstop, all while she was out there in LA. Jane tells her mother at one point, "Crazy, this Aaliyah movie just came on and I just got off the phone with R." And the mom responded, "Really crazy?" So Jane testified that she had oral sex with the defendant in Los Angeles, but she did not share that information with her mother via text. At no point did Jane express any apprehensions about being with the defendant or ask her mother to arrange for her to come home. When Jane excitedly told her mother that she was riding defendant's tour bus to Stockton to attend his concert, Jane's mother responded, "OMG, exciting. You riding on the tour bus?" Shout out to In Living Color TV. Girl, you make me laugh every day. In Living Color TV said, "It's Mel narrating voice for me. Gets me every time." Read that message, Mel. Thanks, Alexis Monet. Y'all be sure to follow Alexis Monet In Living Color TV on every social media platform. She be putting out them fire videos. And shout out to the replay gang. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you and everyone in the chat. Thanks for pulling up. Appreciate y'all so much. So on May 1st, 2015, Jane's mother urged Jane to take advantage of defendant, texting her, it won't be star lifestyle if you don't get serious about your music and show this man you want to be famous like him. Once he tired of you, you'll be like everybody else. You better use this as your opportunity while you got him in a spell. It's what Jane's mother said. And then Jane's mother said, you should text him and be like, you know, you're going to be my boo, and see what he say. To which Jane replied, LMOA and whatever, laughing my off. Jane traveled independently to meet the defendant in Stockton, California, where he was performing on May 1st, 2015. She stayed in contact with her mother the entire time. At one point, Jane explained to her mother how she ended up going to Stockton to see defendant's performance. I told you, he asked me, did I want to come to his show? I said, of course. And he said, okay, let's pack this stuff up. He was even putting this stuff in my bag. Jane was so excited. Oh, Jane. So Jane and her mother remained in constant communication before defendant's show. Jane's mother instructed her about what to wear and made suggestions on how she should behave at the defendant's show. I would blow him little kisses and wink at him and bite the tip of my finger and mess with him real good. You know, do something seductive, then make a silly face. LOL. Jane and her mother continued to text throughout the defendant's performance. At one point, Jane and her mother exchanged the following text. Here's Jane. He's singing this whole show to me. Here's the mom. LOL, too funny. Jane says, for real, for real. Jane goes, LMAO. Jane says, this man in love. Here's the mom. OMG, you gonna marry him and have his babies. The mom says, LOL, my son-in-law gonna be older than me. Then the mom says, too dang funny. And Jane goes, LMAO. I see you over here, Alexis. What you say? Wait a minute, hold on. Alexis, that's so scared. Alexis, you be having me rolling. Alexis said, wait. She said, bite the tip of his finger. What type of, that's what I'm trying to say. Y'all better write these instructions down. This is some game. This is free game from Jane Doe's mama. Ooh-wee. All right. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, so let's see now. Yeah, Alexa, see, that's what I'm saying. You done threw me off the case, girl. So the mom says, too dang funny. Jane says, LMAO. The mom says, well, you better get signed first, then married second. Then the mom said, he gonna seduce you tonight. Jane goes, LOL. And the mom says, you have to give him a massage before you go to bed. Jane goes, LMAO. No, I doubt it. And the mom says, girl, you better, or he will get someone else too. It would sound to me like the mom would love to be in Jane's shoes. Real talk. Oh my goodness. How do you do this with your child? I can see you giving her that advice, if she, you're trying to get her hooked up with a fiance or, and I'm speaking it from an old school thing, but you're doing this just specifically so you can get this man caught up. It's doing too much. All right. So Jane's mother continued to encourage her to seduce defendant. At one point, Jane told her mother that she had caught feelings for the defendant. And according to Jane, she said that she and the defendant had sexual intercourse for the first time after the concert. At no point during her travels with defendant in California between April and May 2015 did Jane disclose that she was 17 years of age or that she had lied to him about her age. After the trip to California, Jane traveled to meet the defendant in Las Vegas, where he was performing. Now, I'm just going to take a quick little minute, y'all. Listen, how is it that this AUSA took this case? Sweet one said, read that part again about the mama telling her daughter about marriage and babies. Girl, let me flip the page back. That's what she told her. She said, You gonna be married and you gonna have his babies. Oh, my son-in-law gonna be older than me. He. That's my. Yeah, I know how Sean David Wade be doing his imitation laugh of a particular individual. That was my attempt at copying off of him. Lord have mercy. So Jane tells her mom that she caught feelings for the defendant, and at no point did she. It says, according to Jane, and that she and the defendant had intercourse for the first time after the concert. At no point during her travels with the defendant in Cali between April and May 2015 did Jane disclose that she was 17 years of age, or that she had lied about her age. After that trip to Cali, Jane traveled to meet the defendant in Las Vegas, where he was performing. No rational juror could conclude that defendant enticed, persuaded, induced, or coerced Jane to travel to California. Jane's contemporaneous conversations, which essentially is the text messages she was doing while she was live and in living color with R. Kelly, those conversations with her mother show that the defendant invited Jane to join him, and she excitedly accepted. So there is no inducement, enticement, coercement. Now, when her mother asked her when he asked her to travel, Jane told her mother, whenever I tell him I can, tomorrow if I choose. But by her own admission, Jane chose to travel with defendant because she wanted to, and her mother encouraged her. So while this court concluded that Jane's parents' testimony was not relevant for the purpose of defense counsel, when they sought to introduce it, Jane's text messages with her mother, introduced as government's exhibit, were highly relevant evidence that defendant took no action to induce, persuade, or coerce Jane to travel with him. Jane was eager to travel with defendant, caught feelings for him, and as she admitted, had concealed her age from defendant so she could pursue a relationship with him. The government's evidence fails to show that Jane was persuaded, induced, enticed, or coerced into traveling to California, especially to on a law that y'all tried to that you guys actually did charge him with, a crime you charged him with, that there was no law governing that, making it a crime. So it's crazy. Sylvie, are you in the house? I know you out there, you on the case, and I know you're running you out there in traffic, but any comment, ma'am, any insight you wish to provide? And right now, Perspective B says she was never kidnapped, and her being there was never an issue, and there is no proof she ever told she was 17. Oh, Kels turned down every business proposition. Yeah. Carolyn Marie says, just railroaded this man. Free R. Kelly. Ain't that the truth? Now, here goes this comment. Alma, right. Angelo Clary must go down. And Kimberly, you're shouting out saying the dad also tried to be on Kel's lighting team. Yep. Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. So the government charged the defendant with 4 Mann Act violations stemming from a trip with Jane to California between September 2015 and October 2015, 2 months before her 18th birthday. According to Jane, she disclosed her true age, which was 17, prior to this trip. The government's evidence is insufficient as to these violations. For the same reasons argued, this is for another racketeering charge. For the same reasons argued in connection with Racketeering Act 8, the government failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that defendant transported Jane with the intent of exposing her to herpes between September and October 2015, and that they also failed to prove that the defendant committed a violation of the California Health and Safety Code beyond a reasonable doubt. The arguments set forth are equally applicable to the other racketeering acts. Let's see here, y'all. So It's just doing too much. Now, I'm open to opening up the panel for anybody that wants to come up and speak on this, because I want to hear from you. So I will drop the link. Anybody that wants to pull up, you are welcome to. Give me a second here. Let me see something. Put the link in the chat. Here we go. Should take care of it. And if you want to come up, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, this whole thing is out. It's just completely out of control. Again, it really is a social justice issue. The previous cases held by or managed or prosecuted by this AUSA Gettys in particular need to be they need to be looked at. They need to be looked at. Shout out to Henny Man, Nurse Henny on the case. So they need to be looked at, because I bet there's a lot of people on lockdown right now because this prosecutor accepted this. I mean, it's blatant that he didn't coerce, induce, entice Jane to come out to Cali. And the mom, according to the testimony in this transcripts, she full participation. Bria Edwards says the parents are Bria Edwards says the parents are full of crap, and so is she, because as soon as she turned 18, she cut her parents off and they got mad and started acting a fool. Yeah. And you would think that if she really, this is just my own opinion, but you would think that if Jane was, really thought herself as a victim, that when Kels did wind up going to jail, you would think that she would have went home and been grateful that her parents were on the case and saved her and kept her from becoming, just that her parents welcomed her back home. But she's not there. And she's not there because, in my opinion, she was feeling Kels and she wanted a relationship with Kels. And she's mad at the parents because the parents ruined that for her. It's just doing too much. So listen, I'll be dropping another video later on this afternoon. So y'all hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on it. Thanks so much. We got Nurse Henny in the house. Okay. Hold on. Nurse Henny, welcome. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Super duper fine. What's tea, girl? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that Azriel was part of the setup from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really feel that if you read the texts, it all in lines. And
Right.
she was 17. It ain't like she was 12 or 13. She knew what she was doing at 17.
Absolutely. And the thing too is like, that's what I'm saying. Like, there should be a law. If you go up to someone on purpose and tell them and lie about your age and then later try to be a defendant, saying he knew I was underage. He knew after you told him you were underage. He knew after you lied and told him you were overage and then finally came clean. That's when he knew. There should be something against it. Sweet One says, the parents are mad that R. Kelly didn't want to do business with them and he refused to allow them to extort him. Jane Doe said on Gayle King that her parents said that if he didn't give them $50K, they would do this. Yep.
And if you look at them texts and the letters that he had them write, he was trying to protect himself because he knew what the parents were doing, because I feel like Azriel ended up feeling guilty and ended up telling him because she fell in love with him. And then he was trying to protect himself.
Yeah.
So the letters, I mean, they all coincide with them texts, and they coincide with, everything
Exactly.
just falls into place a lot better than it did before.
It certainly does. And one of them, and I think this is in part of the show that I'll be doing later on this afternoon, where I think it's the AUSA is asking Jane Doe, and do you know what these are? Their letters. Well, why were they written? to protect me, to extort me. Baby girl, don't do that. Now you can't
Right.
have it both ways.
Yep. And see, and then that was after they broadcasted it and said that she went to Larry's house for however long time, and he had on all 7 TVs or 8 TVs the surviving R. Kelly. They got into her head. That's where she tried to say, "Oh, he told me that my parents sold me for a
Mm,
key, a key,
mm, mm.
drugs."
Wow.
That you could tell was made up and threw in there. After you
Hmm.
look at the whole thing, do you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. Well, the tea stays piping hot. And, and like I said, I want to say this too. Bongine is doing awesome work. And, and at the risk of sounding racist, and that's not the position I'm coming from, but I am coming from the standpoint of Black empowerment. Um,
Right.
So, and I'm glad that somebody's able to pull up and do what Bongine is doing. But one thing I feel like Bongine needs to do is also get some Black female attorneys who are new in the game and train them up, mentor them. And I was reading this research article maybe last week, where that is one reason why Black women have an issue rising in the corporate sector, because they don't have these mentorship type relationships. And so Bongine is doing excellent work. She's setting one hell of an example. And I feel like Bongine, go on and get some mentees. Get some mentees so that when you're done with this thing, somebody else can step up, because this is not going to stop. This type of shady legal behavior from AUSAs, prosecutors, judges, this stuff is not going to stop. And people, we have to be vigilant about it. It's easy to take notice of it now because it's Kells. Everybody and mama know who he is, but the next guy, the John Doe, he's going to be jammed up. And the evidence, if she took this evidence, she's probably convicted more people for way worse evidence. You understand what I mean? But they couldn't afford a proper attorney. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree. Because there's a lot of people that don't have Kel's money or Kel's status that's in the same
Influence.
predicament.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see. Perspective Me said that may have been a running joke because he obviously knew her parents was trying it. I find that they told truth but had it spun and said things out of context. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Tell it all. R. Kelly thought she was legal. Parents told him, and Jane told him, the set is real. Yeah, the setup is real. Yeah.
See, that's something I don't understand.
Mhm.
How can these girls get away with telling people
Thank you.
they're 18 and it's not their true age and nothing at all is being done to them?
Absolutely.
If he's such a predator, why are they lying about their age in the first place?
Absolutely. And that AUSA with her low standards, like I said earlier today, the TV characters have better integrity than
Yeah, the
this one.
government's corrupt.
This is ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
This is ridiculous.
It's appalling.
Yeah. Well, Nurse Annie, you know what? I appreciate you pulling up, sharing your insight on that. The door's open anytime. You're always welcome here. But that's it, y'all. That's the podcast. And I do want to thank you for pulling up. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Make sure you hit that notification bell because we'll be dropping another video later on this afternoon, or I might even turn around and go live again. But with that being said, until next time, y'all, we will see you when we see you. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the Only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work.